Morning, good evening, whatever it is in your time of the world. I had a very interesting email regarding THEO Hayez. A lady sent me a thing saying, "Oh, do you know about him drinking a goonie? And did I listen to the Lighthouse podcast up there at Byron Bay that was recorded? I'm presuming it's recorded sometime around Theo's disappearance." And I noticed one thing that answered one very serious question. Why did Theo walk up the end of Tennyson Road and chuck a U-turn? Because when I went up there, the street sign I filmed said, "Camping here, $1,000 fine," and there was nobody there. Now, by listening to the podcast, there was homeless people living there. One bloke had a mattress on the roof of his car and marijuana sitting on the bonnet. And that's in that other street on the other side of the bridge. That's what I can work out. So I'm not much of, I don't really follow podcasts because you can't see nothing. You hear two people talking, and then I don't know if it's been edited. So that's why I don't edit my videos. You get to hear everything I hear, and you see everything I see. But I'm not knocking the podcast. Don't get me wrong. I love to hear from the Byron Bay, from the Lighthouse podcast. Right? You can email me, mrhominoid at gmail. I tried to send you an email, Lighthouse podcast, and it says address not recognised. And it was lighthousepodcast.com.au. And that's what you said on your channel. And it doesn't come up. It won't accept it. So Lighthouse Podcast, you can email me, Mr. Hominoid, HOMINOID at gmail.com. And you can give me a ring and I'll send you back an email and I'll give you the phone number and you can ring me. You can block your number if you like, but I don't block mine. I've got enough knowledge. But I just found it interesting that all these homeless people, broken chairs and all this were around the bottom end of that street opposite Tennyson Road. Now, that's something I didn't know about because I only went up there last week. I haven't been up there for two years or more, and I didn't go down that street. I had no reason to. As I said on my channel, I do disused railway lines, and like as I was saying on my train video, on the way up there, people say, "Why do I go up there and do disused railway lines and the water movements?" Which is exactly what Theo is involved in: water, the ocean. And I said, "Oh, an outbreak of Murray River fever brought on by mosquitoes, and now the Northern Rivers has got a Murray River fever outbreak because right now in December 2021, the mosquito outbreak because of the floodwaters. Now that's just not because of the Casino Moolumbar Railway Line. That's because of the El Nino effect, right? So it's just not that. And also because I want to get there and check the Moolumbar Railway Line because they're about to rip all that up and turn that into a stupid rail trail, or what we call rail fail in my game. And then the corruption that's going on there at Moolumbar train station, which the government hopefully will find that out by watching these videos, which I've already posted. Um, you pay rent for a shop and then you start up a thing called rail trail. You get $13 million off the government, and next thing you know, you move into a train station, put in a push bike shop, and you throw in a kid and a bloke, and all these push bikes were $700-800, and they're not selling one, not even selling them a coffee. They're sitting there for 4 weeks doing nothing. What a good scam, eh? And the government's paying for it on our property, publicly owned property. This guy's running a business, and he's not even there. Mate, what a good scam that is. This is the sort of this is the sort of crap I bust all the time. This is what I do. I do research, and I do the water movements, people movements, which covers Theo, SigTech, satellite tracking, which is THEO, because of his phone, and also the way how people react. As I said, I drove a cab there at Byron Bay, and um, there's a lot of people in Byron Bay would still know my face if they see me, right? So hello there to the guys from, you know, who walked in my bus there, 11 years ago, 13 years ago now. I think I was 14 years ago. And he came to me 10 years later and said, "Oh, g'day," put his arm over my shoulder in the pub. He said, "Oh, you remember me, And I just went, "No." He said, "Well, I'm, and I said, "Well, you're a little bit grown up now. It's 10 years later." And I said, "How's mum and dad?" But, like even my own father didn't recognise me. This is how much Byron Bay changes people. My own father never recognised me when I come back down to Sydney, and I come up there and said, hey there, you old bugger, you going to buy me a beer?" And my father turned around and said to his mate, he said, "There's this cheeky bastard asked me, expecting me to buy him a beer." And Dad's mate turned around and said, "Don't you know who that is?" He said, "No." He said, "That's your son." My own father didn't recognise me because I went to Byron Bay, because my skin went black. I went, really brown suntan. But that's what I mean. And people change, it's a different environment up there. It's a totally different world around Byron Bay. I'm not knocking Byron Bay. I'm just saying, it's a total different environment. Better than this crap hole down here in Sydney. Sydney's a slog hole compared to Byron Bay. So you don't know how lucky you are up there. But I still stand by my story, by my analysts, listening to the podcast, listening to the GPS, listening to what the family said. Yes, the family's talking about on the podcast. And somebody said, "Oh, yeah, they tried to blackmail us money, and they wanted all this money, and they from Africa." Yeah, there's a YouTube story on a bloke in Africa who gets all the computers from America and Australia, and they actually employ people to go through all the hard drives and to blackmail people. The scammers in Africa that ripped off hundreds of people in Australia, like this silly big woman fell in love with a skinny black African and stupidly went over there and married him, and then he took half the house. He divorced her and claimed half the money. He took all the money and stayed in Africa. And she lost her family home over here in Australia. And yet that bastard never even come over here. I mean, that's Africa. That's what they do. They suck the wealth out of Australia, America, New Zealand, England, Canada, and all these other countries because they can't make money for themselves. They're in poverty. They're in like Zimbabwe and all those sorts of countries. They're in bankruptcy. They're under these dictators. They're under Nigeria. I mean, look at Nigeria. It's gone up from 20 cents over there for one thing they have, which is worth 20 cents US is 100 their money, PDP or PDS or something, and it's gone from 50 to 100 in the space of 12 months. It's just like a pretzel, like a little bolly, and in American dollars, or it's only worth 10 cents. I don't know. And their average wage over there is $5 US a day. So, of course they're trying to scam Westerners, but that's just another typical thing. This is what I was saying. The Hayez family has copped all this crap from around the world. It's hitting them all in the head. These gutless dogs in Africa are trying to take advantage of a family from Belgium whose son's disappeared at Byron Bay, who's very simply, in my eyes, has just walked up to the end of the beach. He's walked up the end of Tennyson Road. He's turned around and seen the homeless people. The locals on this podcast turned around and said back then that you wouldn't dare walk through there overnight. Well, that answers that question. Why did THEO chuck a U-turn? That answers that question. Right? Now found some more evidence. That's where he chucked a U-turn. He's walked up there. He's heard the noise, the rackets, the homeless people. The woman said they're doing ice and drugs, living there in their cars. Well, it's not there now. 18 months later, the council's cleaned them out. See? So I'm working 18 months behind what happened to Theo. So I've got to catch up. But it still gives me a clearer picture because now I can get everybody else's information that they all worked, that they put together, and I can go through every bit what they say and say, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Or, yeah, that does make sense. That matches what he said over here. Or that matches what the police said over there. Or that matches down there with that with the GPS. You see? I can sit back and take a fresh look at it, a fresh set of eyes. So I want you to come along on the journey with me. We'll look at this fresh. Now, this is a new bit of information that's come out of a podcast only released today, or, brought to my attention today, which I didn't know anything about because I haven't lived in Byron Bay for a couple of years. I didn't know they had a podcast. So thank you, Luke. You said, why don't I get a podcast? That's why I don't have a podcast. Because people can't see me, and all you hear is a guy reading a script. And he's talking to somebody on a phone, and you can imagine what they're doing. But I don't. I walk there with a camera, and I go film the waves. I film where you're actually going to see where Theo walked. And you're going to actually see where Theo walked up to the end of the road. Where I parked the car is where he walked right round to. It's in the GPS, right where I parked the car. He stood there and looked in there and said, I'm not going to walk through there. Now I know why. Because they're drug addicts. Homeless people with needles and marijuana. And broken chairs and Christ knows what else was in the podcast. So if you want to go listen to that podcast, I only listened to part of it because once I heard enough what I wanted to hear, that's all I needed to hear. And the only question was, why would Theo turn around and go back? He didn't die there. He didn't disappear there. He walked down through the park, which is later. See? So that's the reason why Theo turned around. So we're getting there. But I still think he got swept out. And someone's come along, picked up his clothes, taken his clothes. And even in the podcast, they said, it was so many days, or whatever it was, where's his clothes? And the police weren't really interested in it. The police took him around and said, oh, this is bad. Here's back his clothes, here's back his diary. Not really interested. Because the police didn't want to say. He drowned. But like I said, if he walked around the rocks, why was his phone on the beach and the GPS come on at 5:18 in the morning, and then his phone got turned on again at 12 o'clock and went flat at 10 past 1 in the afternoon or whatever it was, walking halfway around the headland, which would be a homeless person of the local environment, not somebody who's a backpacker, because the big sign up there says don't walk around here and the backpackers won't. And yet in that podcast, they also said they walked out there the next day or the next couple of days after police finished searching, and they found the empty bottles on the beach, which is exactly what I said, the high-rise rocks to the north, to the west, and it keeps the wind out, and that's where you have a fire there, so you don't get ashes blown up in your face, and all the footprints are there. But where I sat on the log, I then, as I said in my correction of a live stream, Theo was about 6 to 8 meters in front of actually where I sat. But that's why he sat there. He sat on the sand. He said, I'm here. Now, Theo's uncle, JP, I think, or JD or JP, he said he was walking through the park and then he walked a bit. Then he slowed down and he checked his phone, and then he brisk walked a bit, and then he slowed down a bit, and then they tried to recreate his actual steps off his second by second of his GPS. They could actually see when he walked fast, But he never said he ran flat out. He never said that. So Theo was trying to get to somewhere, like as if he was going to a party. He must have been told somebody's down there having a drink. And, I better hurry up and get down there. I don't want to be late. Now, we all done it. How many times have you said, let's say, for example, you're going to the Royal Easter Show. You want to get there early. You're not going to break into a full run, but you're going to walk briskly. And then when you run out of breath like I did, right? But I've got asbestosis, but he's 18. Right? He's going to walk briskly a bit and slow down, briskly a bit, slow down, briskly a bit, slow down. And he's been up, I believe, 8 o'clock in the morning. But the family can answer that question. So the Hayez family will please answer the question. What time did Theo get up? Send me an email. I'll send you back an email with a phone number on it. You can ring me. You can block your phone number, the Hayez family, and quite happily talk to you. And then give me some more information to see what I can work out. Because I've uncovered the tide charts. Not one other person come up there with the tide charts. Nobody thought to put up the tide charts. Not the police. Nothing never said. The media never said nothing. Hayez family never said nothing about the tide. Where the water was. What's the water like right where you were standing? What was the water doing? Nobody asked that question. See? Podcast never said what was the tide level. Podcast never said, was it big surfy tide? Was it low tide? Was it high tide? Was it raining? These questions have all got to be asked. And that's what I try to do on this channel. I ask every single question. I have got that deficit syndrome. I will keep going and going and going until I nail every possible answer I can possibly get. And now here I am now. I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning lying on my bed. And it's still going through my head. Again, once I heard the podcast, and now I'm talking about it to you. And I'm sharing it with you. You're on this journey with me. Let's find out what happened to Theo. Now, that's more information. Why did Theo chuck a U-turn at the end of Tennyson Street? Now the question's been answered. I said, did he run into other backpackers? The answer is no. Backpackers wouldn't go down there because of all the drug addicts. That's why he turned around. But he was still walking, running. And drug addicts aren't going to chase you. It's a drug truck. You know? Theo just wanted to go down there for a drink. He was going as if he was going to a party. That's what it reads at the moment, until somebody gives me further information. So far as I'm concerned at the moment, Theo was cutting across the park to get down the beach, to go down and join up with a group of people that he's heard about, because that's what backpackers do. They talk. They say, go down there, it's Friday night. Someone's always got a fire. And like they said in the podcast, they found bottles down there where they made the fire, up there in Cozy Corner. So Theo wouldn't know how to drink. Now, somebody finally started using their brains and started finding out all the Instagram accounts. Now, if anybody out there has an Instagram account taking photos around Cozy Corner on the 1st of June 2019, check your phone. Or the 31st of May, right, 2019, or even the 2nd of June. Now, why do you say the 2nd of June? Because you never know who might be back there. See, I might see somebody in the 1st of June who might be back there on the 2nd of June. Or we might see his clothing in the background. You don't know. We don't know what's in the photos. So if you've got any Instagram, Snapchat, or any sort of social media photos around there between the 31st of May to the 2nd of June, I opened the window. I expanded a bit. Where's his clothes? Where's his shoes? Where's his shirt? Now, and the other one, this person said to me was, oh, I seen lying on the side of the road down at Coffs Harbour with another guy hitchhiking, and this person went past. Why didn't they call the police? Why did they wait till the big thing on the news? If I drove down the road like I did when I was 18 and I seen a guy's hand sitting on the side of the road like that, I stopped my car, I took him to Windsor Hospital. And he was down there between Richmond and North Richmond in Sydney. And then so I took him there and I called the police, and the police went out there. They found another guy stuck in a car upside down in the creek, and he nearly drowned because I stopped. And he was a baker from the North Richmond Bakery at the time, which is now a great big high-rise building. But back in the time, so I saved his mate's life. I never even got a thank you, but it doesn't matter. I saved his guy's life. That was way back in 1979, 1980. See, I stopped. I said, what's the guy's hand doing there? I didn't go drive past. I seen a hand sitting there on the side of the road on the Richmond to North Richmond Road where the old Pansy train used to run. I stopped, and I was like 18 years old. So why didn't this person reckon that they seen Theo lying on the side of the road, or they didn't know it was Theo, so they said, oh, clothes like Theo. But Theo's clothes are a standard sort of clothes, right? Anybody can wear clothes like Theo wears, those brown khaki sort of pants, a T-shirt, a black hat. And you're driving past, are you really going to get a good look like that? Or are you just going to get a... That's what you're going to get. You see brown and whatever... Oh, was that a black T-shirt? Or was it brown? Or was it blue? And was it night? Are you really 100% sure it's Theo? No. Like his own uncle said, he thought he saw Theo in the main street of Byron Bay. He ran across the road thinking it's Theo, and the guy spoke with an Australian accent and said, what's going on, mate? And he goes, oh, sorry, I thought you were my nephew. And it was an Australian guy dressed in similar clothes to Theo and looked like Theo, but he was an Aussie. What's to say the guy on the side of the road down across Harbour wasn't just a drunk and his mate was trying to get him home, because there's parties all the way along there, north of Coffs Harbour, along the old Pacific Highway, before you get out into the bush on the way to Grafton. And this person was coming from Byron Bay. So if Theo's unconscious or drunk or whatever, why would he be in a car 300 k's down south? He would have vomited all over somebody. That person then would have threw him out of the car. So why didn't that person call the cops? Why would they leave him out there in the middle of nowhere? Doesn't make sense. Because they've come out of a local party. That's why. And they're passed out the side of the road, and the guy's obviously trying to get his mate home. That's what it reads to me. I know. I used to drive that highway. I used to see him all the time on the side of the road, north of Coffs Harbour, coming out of parties from down on the beaches. And that's what they do. The beaches north of Coffs Harbour, they go down there and they have parties. They come up the highway and they hitchhike back into Coffs Harbour. I seen up there 20, 30 years ago. And young people will always be young people. They always do the same thing. Remember, I used to drive that road every week for 3 years. Rain, hail or shine. Every Friday and Saturday night, they'd be there trying to hitchhike back into Coffs Harbour. Just 30 k's outside of Coffs Harbour, they'd be hitching south to go back into Coffs Harbour. Exactly where that person said, bloke lying on the side of the road next to another person hitchhiking. Because that's what they do. Down there in that area, they have parties on the beach, the same as they do at Byron Bay. It's the same atmosphere. It's not like Byron Bay, but it's very similar. They have beach parties. Anyway, from Mr. Hominoid, I hope I answered that question to that one on the Coffs Harbour theory was at Theo, and to the why did he chuck a U-turn on Tennyson Road? Just wait till we find out what else we can find out. So thank you very much for that email, that message I got. Thank you very much. Keep them coming. Don't forget, put out a message to all your friends. Anybody got any Snapchat, Instagram, photographs of 31st of May or end of May, any time in the end of May, say right up to the 4th of June, 2019, around the Cozy Corner, right? Anybody's got any photographs, even if it's the 5th of June, there might be something there sitting there in the sand up in the background. You mightn't have noticed it, right? So just whatever you got, let me know. Okay, from Mr. Hominoid, good night, good morning, stay safe, be happy. MrHominoid@gmail.com. See ya.